Hey guys, it's Dave. Today I thought it would be fun to feature some Hoya that break the bank. I thought it would be fun the other 4 times I've tried to film this in between road construction as well. It was not fun. Any one of those 4 times. Let's see how today goes. So I have a list of the Hoya I'm going to present over 2 parts. So part 1 today, part 2 on Saturday, if the road construction doesn't start back up. But I'm going to break the order I had intended to present them in and start out with one that I am just so smitten with. This is a brand new Hoya to me and quite rare on the US market. And if you feel like playing interactively, hit pause and take a guess at what you think this might be. I have seen a few plants that that carry this name that really don't look anything like this one. This leaf's kind of goofy. I don't know if that maybe got hung up on a pot or a trellis or something. But I saw this last week when I was working at a friend's nursery and just fell for it. I love it so very much. What do you think it is? This one is called a Species Affinity Carnosa Vietnam EPC 936. And if you don't know EPC, that's Epiphytic Gardens. So a big, I think they're out of Thailand, exporter, should say. But just a darling plant. And I'm so excited to grow this out. Now, in this form, does it look anything like a Carnosa? No, not really. I would imagine that somebody has grown this out to flower, and that's the Affinity Carnosa. So, could be wrong. Maybe Carnosa Vietnam looks more like this. I haven't really seen it. My guess, because I can't find much of anything about this particular plant. I've seen this name attached to plants that don't look anything like this one. And I've seen some that do look like this one. But it has very thick leaves and this beautiful veining here. So my guess is if you give this a lot of light, you'll get exaggerated veining and smaller leaves, or less light like these have gotten, you'll probably get longer leaves. That's fairly common in Hoya. But I'm excited to grow this out like you cannot believe. So, if you can find one of these, you're probably looking in that $55, $70 shipped range, something like that. Really cool plant. Happy to have it in the collection. Next up, we have this long boy. This is Nong Nooch IML 1541, and that is Iris Marie Little. That's David Little's nursery ascension number. We lost David Little back in 2009, I think, so he's been gone a while. But would you look at this? Absolutely stunning. This particular leaf is about 10 inches right now, and then we have this little vine right here. So this particular plant is going to prefer it to be shaded, cool, but humid. So perfect for my grow tent over the course of the winter, but it's going to want 60+% humidity. I don't have any experience growing any of the plants we're going to be talking about, so I'm going from what other experienced growers have put on the internet. I'll report my findings next summer. But I saw this. It wasn't really for sale, and my friend went ahead and gave it to me, like I said, for that work I was doing up there. Quite excited about this. One leaf active growth point, or one node, basically 1 or 2 leaves, you're looking at $75 to $125 if you have another leaf or another node on there. So again, not a cheap plant. We're not talking any of the plants I have at several $100s per node, or God forbid, 1,000 or 2,000 or more per node. But I would say at $100, that's probably expensive in most people's eyes. My friends, I have added a third variegated Hoya to my collection. It's the Subquintupla nervus New Moon. And look how beautiful this specimen is. Holy smokes. It is absolutely gorgeous. I hope it's picking up on that pink edging it has. This plant, from someone reputable with good variegation like this one, you're looking at $100 shipped. I have seen some very subpar examples of this on Etsy for less. Terrible examples. Barely variegated, really kind of shady to even call them variegated. But this one is absolutely stunning. And I don't fall for variegated plants, obviously, if this is only my third one. But boy, oh boy, is this gorgeous. This one likes it warm. So just like, and by the way, if you're not familiar with that name, you might be more familiar with Pachysclada. That's its former name. So it's been reclassified. Not reclassified as a verticillata, if you can believe it. Like almost everything else has been. But a gorgeous plant. So besides the fact that this likes it warm, there's an interesting note on this. There is a version of this that has longer leaves that does not get this red edging. And then there are these shorter, rounder leaves that do get, I guess it's not red, it's pink edging. And it is the same species. So no, I saw somebody kind of turning himself into pretzels about which he had, and it's the same plant. So it's just a different clone. Anyway, this is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to grow this out. It's one I'm sure I'll be sharing with you guys next year. Here's one that might be a little easier to find than the first couple we looked at. It's the Bongviengensis. Probably can be had for $55 or so plus shipping, so in that $70 range, I would say. I got this pretty nice full starter plant and then a nice vine with several nodes on it, which in my book is like getting extra plants. I don't know if any of you saw, I think a month ago, I had some new plants that I think it was called Size Matters. And I had one called a Bat Cave that had a vine like this. I put it in the tent on a piece of bamboo. Every single node popped out 2 leaves on it, so it's really, really doing well. I would expect this one to do well too. This will be a little trickier for some people. This is from Laos, by the way, and it's also been found, grown out, and confirmed that there was one found in China in 2015, verified in 2017. It likes it cool to very cool at night and humid. That might be a challenge for a lot of people, pardon me. For me, in the winter, the tent goes down to about 60, 59 degrees at night, 72 during the day. Pretty much ideal. It's a ways from blooming, of course, and as long as it doesn't need to have a shorter daylight, I should have success getting this to bloom. So I'm not too worried about that. I think Doug Chamberlain got his to bloom once, Doug from Vermont Hoyas, and he kind of figured that that would be the only time he would be able to do it. But with as cool as that tent gets at night, I think I stand a chance. We shall see. Either way, this is going to be a hardy plant in most people's collection. It is adaptable to lower humidity, I've read, but Doug insists that to get it to bloom, it's going to have very high humidity and those cool temperatures. Is it worth buying just to be a foliage plant? I think so. With those really neat leaves, imagine this growing out beautifully. Yeah, I think it'd be a great foliage plant, if an expensive starter. This is the KSB 01. one, considered to be very rare in its natural habitat. It grows on one tree. This is a natural hybrid of verticillata and vitellina, and it is stellar, a really pretty plant. I bought this one, or I was given this one for my work, because it had this one beautiful, perfect leaf and a vine with several nodes on it. There was another one with a much larger leaf, but a short stem. I am working Saturday again. I may pick that one up. I think a lot of this plant. I assume that KSB stands for Kassenbaum, where it was found. That would make sense to me. There's not a lot of information other than this plant likes it warm and it's adaptable to lower humidity. Be careful if you're trying to buy this on Etsy. I saw what was very clearly a verticillata, the one that we sometimes call pink splash, hopefully in parentheses, not part of the name. This does not get dark if you pull it away from light. This is the color of the leaf. And so when you see one that's dark green, there is a KSB 02 with a similar origin story. It grows on one tree as well, natural cross. But they're expensive, very expensive. You can plan to spend, with shipping, about $100. And when I say, with shipping $100, I am talking about from a trusted source. If I'm going to spend this kind of money on a plant, I'm going to buy it from someone that either I know, or from someone like April at Unsolicited Plant Talks, or Rick Morera at Rick and Swiffer's Hoyas. I'm not going to put this kind of money out on some random person selling on Etsy. I'm just not. I think a very worthy addition to a collection, just to have such a cool origin story. It grows on one tree. You have a piece of history in your hand. I'm here in Iowa City, Iowa, and I've got something this unique. And believe me, when these leaves are large, like I have seen in person, wow, absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to grow this out. Take a look at this pubescent beauty. This is the Calycina stargazer. The flowers on this are 1 inch across each. And it's one of those plants like the Magnifica numelarioides that require a shortening of daylight hours to bloom. So if you have them, for instance, under a 14-hour grow light, you are not going to get them to bloom. I know that for the Magnifica. I'm going to take Doug Chamberlain's word for it on this one. This is one of his top 10 Hoya, and that man has grown an awful lot of Hoya. So when he adds one to the top 10, that's serious business, friends. But look at just how gorgeous this is. This was described back in 1913, and it's still a reasonably uncommon Hoya. So I think you're looking at $55, $15 shipping on a plant like this. My understanding is that it is so fragrant that just a bloom will fill your house with fragrance. And, I can't wait for that. I just love it. Especially after I had my Hushgeliana bloom. I opened the grow tent and, oh, that wasn't a pleasant experience for the few days that was putting off its, dirty sock scent? If you have one, leave a comment at how you would describe it. Long COVID has kind of affected my nose, but it was unmistakably bad. I'll tell you that much. For my 7th and final pick on part 1, I'm going to cheat a little bit. We potted this up together after I bought it a month ago. This is Hoya Elephant AH027. AH stands for Aloha Nursery. And look at this new leaf. Just absolutely terrific. Has not hardened off, it's just coming out. And then we have this rather great vine with 1, 2, 3 nodes on it. And then we have another vine coming out. I grabbed this one to show it off, but for a couple of reasons. You know, you've read it, we've all read it, you know, never repot a plant till you've had it for 2 weeks or a month or 5 years till it acclimates to your home, etc. and so on. I had this plant for 1 day when I put it in this much larger vessel. So it dispels 2 myths in my book. One, that you have to wait to re-stress out a plant. You have to let it acclimate for 2 weeks to get comfortable, to re-stress it out, to put it in a new container. And then number 2, that Hoya have to fill in their pot, they have to get comfortable in their pot before they'll grow. It concentrates on the roots, etc. There probably are Hoya that do that. The experience, the vast majority of my Hoya is this. I repot them immediately and they do well immediately. I don't bring home a plant and replant it right away just to be a contrarian. It may sound like that if you follow me on the channel, because I'm pretty irreverent about advice that I've been given and I've read, and you know, I've heard the story, you know, 1,000 times not to replant that plant. Where are all these thousands and thousands and thousands of plants that have presumably just perished because somebody repotted it too quickly? And I have a further thought on that in just a second, but take this plant when I brought it home. It was in a very, very dense soil mix. These leaves were very, very light yellow, kind of sickly looking, but this is a shade-loving plant, and it was getting a ton of light, a ton of ventilation growing in a nursery. And actually this was growing outside at the time I bought it. So that soil was perfect for those growing conditions. It had to be watered probably nearly every day. If I had brought that into my house, and then in this case in the tent where I put it on a middle shelf with no additional lighting, so it could take on that really beautiful dark green foliage again, it would have stayed wet forever, and my risk of root rot would have escalated to probably an emergency pretty quickly. So I avoid that right off the bat. Knowing that it's very likely to grow, I'm not too afraid of that, but I'm gonna set this down and share a couple of experiences I've had reasonably recently. I got a group of new plants that I did what I always do. I opened them up to repot them. I had root mealybugs in one. I had 3 with no roots at all. So had I let them acclimate into my household environment, how long would it have taken for me to find out that I had 3 plants with no roots at all? They had dry rotted off. A long time, probably. So for those people who, if it's happy, leave it alone, how do you know if you haven't looked at the roots? And for me, it's a no-brainer. Take it out, put it in a substrate I understand, and grow the plant. If you've had the experience of doing that more than once, because anybody can repot a plant and it can go south, but if you've had the experience early in your career where you were repotting constantly and they were all dying on you, for sure put it in the comments. But I just don't hear those stories. I hear the stories of never do it. I don't hear the I used to do it all the time, and until I stopped doing it, my plants were croaking on me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the only one who has success bringing plants home and setting them up for success in my environment under my care. But I doubt it. I want you to check in with me for part 2, which, like I said, that's coming up on Saturday. I may have added an all-time new favorite Hoya to my collection. Bye-bye.